Throughout history, humanity has sought meaning in stories, especially those filled with symbols and prophecies. Among the most enigmatic is Mystery Babylon, described in Revelation as a corrupting force, more than a city, a system that opposes the divine. The name itself suggests a hidden truth, a puzzle that has fascinated people for centuries. Is it a place, an ancient empire, or a recurring symbol of power and temptation? Babylon's legacy is ambition, defiance, and the blending of spiritual and state power. The story of Mystery Babylon is ultimately a cautionary tale about the nature of power and the struggle between earthly kingdoms and a higher moral law. As we explore this concept, we confront the timeless question: where should our true allegiance lie? To truly grasp the enigma of Mystery Babylon, we must journey back to its earliest roots in the book of Genesis, where we encounter Nimrod, a legendary figure described as a mighty hunter and a powerful leader. Nimrod's ambition led him to establish Babel, a city that would become the epicenter of humanity's first great rebellion against divine authority. Under Nimrod's rule, the people of Babel were united by a single language and a common purpose. Driven by a desire for greatness, they set out to build a colossal tower that would reach the very heavens, a bold symbol of human pride, ambition, and the refusal to accept any limits set by a higher power. Their goal was not just to make a name for themselves, but to establish a society independent from God, where human achievement and self-worship reigned supreme. This was the birth of a system where political power and religious devotion merged, all centered on the glorification of humanity itself. In response, God intervened dramatically. By confusing their language, he shattered their unity and scattered them across the earth. The construction of the tower came to a sudden halt, serving as a powerful warning against the dangers of prideful unity and collective rebellion against the divine. Babel thus became the archetype of the rebellious state, a place where political authority and religious fervor fused into a single force, demanding absolute loyalty and suppressing any allegiance to a higher spiritual authority. This ancient narrative sets the stage for the concept of Mystery Babylon, a world system characterized by centralized power, the rejection of God's sovereignty, and the certainty of eventual judgment for those who persist in rebellion. The spirit of Babel, this relentless drive to build a worldly kingdom that rivals the heavens, continues to animate the great harlot described in the book of Revelation, echoing through the ages in every empire that exalts itself above the divine. The lesson is clear. Systems and societies built on pride, self-exaltation, and rebellion against higher authority are ultimately destined to fall, no matter how mighty they may seem. Mystery Babylon explores what happens when government becomes more than an administrator. It becomes an object of worship, a force that seeks not just obedience, but the hearts and minds of its people. Throughout history, we've seen how governments can slowly transform from serving the public to demanding reverence, blurring the line between civic duty and spiritual devotion. This shift is subtle. The state offers security, identity, and a sense of belonging. But in exchange, it asks for unwavering loyalty, devotion, and sometimes even a kind of worship. The government becomes a source of comfort and protection, but also expects citizens to place their trust and hope in its power above all else. Statism emerges, where the state is seen as the ultimate authority and good, and its leaders are elevated to near mythical status. Political rallies and speeches take on the tone of religious revivals, and leaders are celebrated as saviors. Rituals, symbols, and national myths mimic religious practices, forging deep emotional bonds between citizen and state. Parades, pledges, and anthems become sacred ceremonies, reinforcing the idea that the nation is something to be revered. The state becomes the provider of meaning and salvation, demanding allegiance that rivals or even replaces spiritual faith. Monuments and statues rise as objects of veneration, and the government's promises of a better future echo the language of redemption. Questioning the state becomes heresy, and dissent is punished. Those who challenge the official narrative are branded as traitors or enemies, and independent thought is discouraged in favor of collective loyalty. Mystery Babylon warns of this seductive idolatry, where people become intoxicated by the promises of power, unity, and prosperity. The allure of belonging and security can blind citizens to the dangers of unchecked authority. The government ceases to serve and instead demands worship, drawing loyalty away from higher moral authority and placing itself at the center of people's lives and values. This is the danger at the heart of the allegory, a warning that when government demands worship, it risks becoming a false god, leading society down a path where freedom and conscience are sacrificed for the illusion of safety and order. Statism takes many forms, from brutal dictatorships to benevolent welfare states. It can be obvious and forceful, or subtle and persuasive, shaping societies in ways both seen and unseen. Throughout history, the state has worn many masks, adapting to the times and the expectations of its people. Authoritarian regimes rule by fear, presenting leaders as infallible and crushing dissent. In these societies, obedience is demanded, and questioning authority can come at a great personal cost. The iron fist is visible, and the consequences for defiance are swift and severe. Economic statism controls resources and markets, promising equality but fostering dependency. Citizens may receive support, but often at the expense of their autonomy, as the state becomes the primary provider and gatekeeper of opportunity. Benevolent statism, seen in modern welfare states, offers cradle-to-grave care, providing security and comfort to millions. Yet, this safety net can quietly erode the sense of personal responsibility and initiative, as individuals become accustomed to relying on the state for their needs, but at the cost of personal freedom and responsibility. The velvet glove may feel gentle, but it can still restrain, limiting choices and shaping lives according to the state's vision. In all forms, the state demands primary allegiance, seeking to define identity and loyalty. Whether through patriotic rituals or subtle messaging, it asks citizens to put collective interests above all else. Expanding its reach into every aspect of life, the state monitors, regulates, and influences daily existence, often in ways that go unnoticed until freedoms are already diminished. Mystery Babylon's allegory encompasses both tyranny and seduction, ruling by fear or by comfort. The state can intimidate, but it can also entice, offering pleasures and distractions that mask deeper controls. The goal is always the same, no matter the method or the mask, to capture loyalty and devotion, to become the center of people's hopes, fears, and aspirations. Drawing people away from higher spiritual or moral authority, the state seeks to fill the void, offering itself as the ultimate source of meaning and security. Whether with an iron fist or a velvet glove, the state's aim is the same: to be trusted above all else, to be the final authority in people's lives. The state seeks to become the object of ultimate trust. The warning is clear. History shows the dangers of unchecked power and misplaced faith. Beware any system that demands your worship. True freedom requires vigilance, courage, and a willingness to question authority. Only by guarding our independence and remaining alert to the seductive power of the state can we hope to preserve our liberty and dignity. Revelation's depiction of Mystery Babylon is rich in symbolism. She is the great whore on many waters. Her influence is global and corrupting. Dressed in royal colors and adorned with gold, she represents wealth, power, and materialism. Her golden cup is filled with seductive but poisonous promises, intoxicating the world. She rides the scarlet beast, a symbol of political and military power, showing the union of ideology and state. Her name, Mystery Babylon the Great, signals her veiled, archetypal nature as the source of spiritual compromise. She is not just one corrupt entity, but the mother of all such systems. Understanding these symbols is key to unmasking the system she represents: immense wealth, seductive ideology, and a demand for worship. The warning is timeless. Beware the allure of systems that promise everything but demand your soul. Mystery Babylon's story is not just about power, but about inevitable downfall. Revelation describes her judgment as sudden and catastrophic. Her collapse comes in a single hour. Ironically, the very powers she controlled turn against her, destroying her in a violent end. This reveals the instability of alliances built on greed and godlessness. Her fall devastates the world's economy. Kings and merchants mourn the loss of wealth and luxury. The system commodified everything, even human life, and its collapse is total. Divine justice is served. "Come out of her, my people," calls a voice from heaven, urging separation from corruption. The prophecy warns that power built on rebellion and idolatry cannot last. Its spectacular collapse is a warning against trading eternal values for temporary gain. In the end, the story is a call to discernment and true allegiance. The identity of Mystery Babylon has sparked debate for centuries. Early Christians saw it in Rome, wealthy, powerful, persecuting, and built on 7 hills. Reformers later identified it with the papacy, seeing corruption and worldly power in the church. Modern interpretations point to a future global system, political, economic, and religious unity under a charismatic leader. Others see Babylon as a recurring type, any system that seduces people away from higher values, whether in capitalism, communism, or consumer culture. The spirit of Babylon manifests wherever ultimate faith is placed in worldly systems rather than in something transcendent. Its warning is universal and ever relevant. Mystery Babylon's warning forces us to ask, can government be a force for good? Some argue government is essential for order, justice, and protecting rights, acting as a moral agent. Laws can promote virtue and protect the vulnerable, and many traditions see the state as divinely ordained. But the story warns that concentrated power corrupts, tempting rulers to demand allegiance that belongs only to a higher authority. Morality, it suggests, must come from conscience and community, not coercion. Utopian promises lead to control and ultimately tyranny. The ambition to build a perfect society without higher guidance is the spirit of Babel. True justice requires limits on power and a recognition of where ultimate allegiance belongs. The story of Mystery Babylon endures because it captures the tension between worldly power and higher allegiance. Its imagery warns against seductive systems that promise security in exchange for worship. The concept urges vigilance and skepticism toward any institution demanding unquestioning loyalty. Babylon's golden cup takes many forms, always tempting us to forget higher authority. The allegory shapes art, literature, and protest, providing a language for dissent and a critique of unchecked power. Ultimately, it is a mirror, reflecting our anxieties about corruption in the future. The shadow of Babylon reminds us to be watchful, discerning, and to remember the difference between the city of man and the city of God.